Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today's episode 113, and we're going to be interviewing Pam M. How are you doing this afternoon, Pam?
Hi, I'm wonderful. Happy Sunday, Jim.
Happy Sunday. So let's dive in here. Tell me about growing up. How was your childhood?
I grew up very normal childhood. I came from a very good family. I grew up in a very small town, a lake town, about 700 people. My parents were married at 18. I was born at 19 the following year. They had a great marriage. Yeah, it was very normal. There wasn't addiction. There were not addiction issues in my family. Um, at the time, drinking was, it was a happy thing. It was something we associated with good times, with fun. There were no negative connotations surrounding that. Yeah, I grew up in that town. I spent 45 years there, actually.
Wow.
Um, yeah, like you when you grow up in a lake town, you're like a little mermaid. The beach is your life, and yeah, so very fairly normal childhood.
How was it as far as friends and things like that? How was your social life growing up?
Um, from a very young age, yeah, it's funny reflecting on that. A very young age, I felt different. I was always different. I had friends. I had, quite a few friends. Everything was very on par, but I always felt different. I always felt less than everyone else or better than everyone else. I never really felt comfortable in my own skin ever. It was like watching my life from the outside. I was always trying to be like someone else or to not be like someone else. Kind of fish out of water. Very isolated in my own skin, I guess is a way to say that. And I don't know, I felt like everyone around me could see that. I don't know whether they did or they didn't. But I felt very alone and isolated in my own skin, never comfortable with who I was ever. As long as I can remember, never comfortable with who I was. High school was particularly difficult. Yeah, so the first time I remember drinking, oddly enough, was by myself, which is how it ended. Um, and I had taken some liquor from my parents' liquor cabinet. And I'm older. I'm 52. I think everybody that's my age had parents with a liquor cabinet that was not a liquor cabinet. It was above the stove in a little cupboard that the kids couldn't reach. Well,
Yeah.
this kid could reach it. And I remember pouring it in a cup and taking it up to my bedroom and sitting in the closet alone. And nothing great happened, nothing extraordinary. I just remember it being safe and dark, and it felt really good. And I think after that, I just laid down and had a nap. But that was my first recollection of really drinking. And then when I hit high school, any chance I got to get out of my own head and out of my own skin, I took it. So I dabbled in drugs.
What do you think? So let me ask you this, because it's going back to when you were young. Um, what do you think made you feel so isolated and so uncomfortable in your own skin? Because most
Uh,
people, when you have good parents, like you mentioned, usually that reflects into the child's mentality and the way they live their life. So it sounds like you felt like the odd woman out.
yeah, and I think that's all very deeply rooted in my alcoholism. Um, I think I was born an alcoholic. My stories very speak strongly to the progression of that disease. Um, like it doesn't make sense. We hear a lot of stories about people who come from alcoholic homes, who come from homes that are parented by addicts, and that seems natural and okay. I can see where that came from. Mine, I believe I was born an alcoholic. I was born with that tendency. I have a sibling who is not an alcoholic. We were raised in the same home. We had the same upbringing. My parents were not alcoholics. However, if you look back in my family, um, there were alcoholics in our family, but they were, and this made it really difficult for me. They were older men. Um, they were looked down upon. When they were spoken about, this is what I remember hearing. They're very, very nice guys. They just won't stop drinking. And it wasn't, they can't stop drinking, they won't stop drinking, which really enforced in me, I think, that the power was mine to stop drinking. Um, that made it extremely difficult when I finally realized that I had no control over this. That made it really, really hard because what I knew about alcoholics were that they were older men, they were dirty, they lived on the street. There were not, I couldn't relate the word alcoholic and woman with a career, with children, with, I couldn't put those two things together. So that made it really hard for me to wrap my head around this, that I could possibly be an alcoholic.
And I'm not sure if I missed it. I know you said first time you drank alone. How old were you?
I was about 11 or 12.
Wow.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
about 11 or 12. And remember, this is a home that I didn't see that stuff go on in an inappropriate way. I saw my friends have, or my parents, sorry, have friends over, and it was fun. And they had barbecues, and there were all the normal things that were associated with that. And I saw people, I mean, I saw people get drunk. There was never fighting. It was always, there was always a positive connotation to it for me.
So going into high school and things like that, how was your life? I mean, well, actually, how was your life, during middle school and stuff? Because to start at 11 or 12, when did it become where you needed it?
During middle school, we don't call it middle school in Canada.
Oh
Uh,
no.
that's funny to hear. Yeah. Yeah. I was a great student, straight A student. I was the one to help other kids, big heart. Um, yeah, I was a great student. School was good, and it really took a turn. I'm going to say around grade 7 and 8, 6, 7, and 8 in there as you start to get older, and being cool is the thing. And that's, there's a lot of pressure. And I felt the pressure as a girl to look a certain way, to do certain things. And there was a lot of pressure to rely on how you looked as a female. Yeah, high school was when it really kicked in. um like I said, I remember that being my first drink, but nothing ever really popped for me after that. It was when I went to high school, and I came from a small town, so here I am in a bigger world, a much bigger pond, and I'm this little fish. And I was that kind of kid that I could be whatever you wanted me to be. I could be a stellar student. I could hang out with the kids who were, binging in the smoking alley. But I gravitated, yeah, very quickly, I guess, looking back, I gravitated to a group of kids who decided that you didn't have to go to school. And there was a better way to feel. And we would sneak off to the park and we would smoke a joint, and we would scoop up enough money, whatever we could steal from our parents, to buy a Mickey, and we would share it. And I loved it. I loved that feeling. It took away my uncomfortableness. I felt good in my skin. I was smarter. I was prettier. I was more capable. Alcohol made me all the things I wanted to be all throughout high school. When I hit about grade 11, um, I had started to get in a little bit of trouble for not going to school. And I remember my dad saying, and it sticks with me to this day, if you don't smarten up, you're going to be nothing more than a garbage man. And so I thought, well, I better pull my socks up here. So I met a boy. We fell in love, and I pulled my socks up for a little while. And that's a big part of my story. I went through periods where I could pull it together. I could pull it together, but not for very long. So I pulled my socks up, like my dad said. I went to college. when I got to college, I maintained the same boyfriend because my goal in life was to get married, have children. That was what I was supposed to do. I never knew what I felt like the right thing to do was. I did what I was told was the right thing. And as a female, you get married, you have kids, and that's it. That's your
Hold on one second. It sounds like you got muted for some reason. There might be a connection. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Okay. Where were we? You're talking about high school and
Yeah, sorry. I don't know how much you caught. So after high school, I went to college and I discovered this great thing in college called pub night. I had never, didn't know what that was. I was from a small town. So now I'm in an even bigger city going to college. And pub night, I love that. I got a lot of attention. There were a lot more people and there was a lot more booze. And I loved it. I loved it. I did that every week. That quickly bled into not once a week, but twice a week. On a really good week, it was 3 times a week. Did some things that could have gotten me in a lot of trouble, put myself in some really bad positions looking
like
back.
like what?
Um, like I remember one night, and I was actually with, the high school sweetheart. Got drunk one night and I said to my girlfriend, I'm going home with this boy. And she said, you don't know him. And I said, I know, it'll be fine. And, quite intoxicated. I ended up waking up not knowing where I was, not knowing where my car was. And I continually put myself in those spots, where I could have been really, really hurt. I was taken advantage of a few times because I put myself in those spots, right? I take full responsibility for that. I did it. Um, and particularly after that night, it's funny. I went home and I was instilled with a sense of right and wrong. Even through the things I did, I had a strong sense of right and wrong, a moral code. My moral compass, though, um, was spun like the wheel of fortune. I couldn't get it back on track, but I knew deep down inside, I always knew right from wrong. I came home, told my high school sweetheart. 2 days later, I have a ring on my finger, right? And they're a good example of my selfishness and my self-centeredness, right? And I married him. Um, I knew I could misbehave. And not only could I misbehave, but I got a present for it, right? It was all about me. So we got married, had 3 great children, 2 boys and a girl. And always, 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 there was that, even as a kid, that restless, irritable discontent, never happy where I was, always wanting something else. Um, I don't know. People would describe me, my mom always described me as high strung. Pam, you're so high strung all the time. I was always jumping from one thing to the next, almost like I was looking for something my whole life and couldn't find it. So the first marriage, I again became restless, irritable, discontent. And I thought, I'm leaving. There's got to be something more for me. I'm better than this. There's something more for me. So I left that marriage, hurt my children terribly leaving that marriage. Uh, yeah, that was the beginning of a long road of struggles, financially, emotionally. Not only did I leave, but I had someone else. Relationships are a huge part of my story. Not only did I leave, I jumped right into another relationship that was very risky. Um,
How so?
Someone I barely knew, someone from another country. Quickly, I moved him in with us because my goal in life was to make a happy home. And it was going to be picture perfect. And it was going to look like a Norman Rockwell painting. All the while, I was just making a disaster of it, just a disaster. And not just for me, for my parents. They watched this and they would sit me down and they would say, Pam, look what you're doing. And I really thought at the time I knew better. I was hurting my children, forcing them to like men who, they didn't necessarily like. And with good reason, looking back with good reason, but you're going to like him and we're going to have this happy home. We're going to have this because that's going to make me happy. That's what this is about. Um, I was like a tornado. I was just a tornado ripping through people's lives and not the first inkling.
Oh, Pam, you froze up again. Gonna take a break right now. Give it one moment. All right, so I know you had some trouble with the police. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't like to get into too much about that because it's not, that was never, he left the country and is, as far as I know, is not allowed back in the country at this moment.
Well,
So
who is this? Someone, the person you were dating?
yes,
Because
yes.
we had missed that a little bit. We froze up again.
Yeah,
So,
sorry. Yeah. This was someone I had moved in. Never should have done that. Very dangerous situation I put everyone in. Yeah.
all right, so we're back. Had a little issue again. So, you were mentioning police involvement, something to do with that relationship with that person.
Yeah. So yeah, it got really, really ugly. At one point we were advised by the police. I was advised to leave my job, to relocate, to change my name. It got really, really, really ugly.
Okay.
And yeah, it was not pretty. So that eventually passed. Not pretty. It passed like a kidney stone for sure. And then, what am I going to do now? Here I have these three kids. I'm working a full-time job. I'm an educational assistant at a public school. What am I going to do? Well, the next thing that I can think of, and this is the scary part. This is my best thinking at work at the time. That was my best thinking. I'm going to get in another relationship with someone who had an allergy to working. Didn't work. Um, Needless to say, financially, that relationship took me to the cleaners. Like it literally wiped me out. I knew it was bad. I knew it was bad, but I was going to fix it because I was a fixer. I can fix anything. Give me something ugly and I'll make it look pretty. And I couldn't, right? I was swimming upstream. At that point, my drinking had started to accelerate. He was a drinker, smoking a lot of weed. But it still wasn't a daily drinking thing at that point. It was a Friday to Sunday thing. It wasn't a daily drinking thing. And once in a while on the weekends, and this also worked against me. The alcohol would let me win where nothing bad happened. So I can't be an alcoholic because look at me. I only had five last night and nothing bad happened. And I got up in the morning and I didn't feel too horrible. And the booze would let me win, which went against the case that was being built that I was an alcoholic. I started to have people mention to me, not a lot at that time, not a lot at all. Oh, you were drinking again last night? Those little tiny things, right? That are just clues and just, little pokes at you that this might be a problem. Right at that time, at the end of that marriage, my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she was a healthy, vibrant woman, beautiful woman, and they said, she doesn't have a long time. And we were wiped out, like my family was wiped out. Um, Coinciding with that, the partner that I had, my husband at the time, my second husband that didn't like to work. Yeah, did you get the
Well, no, you mentioned your husband that didn't work and then had a little
Yeah,
technical.
so Yeah, so he didn't work. And my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Did you get that part?
Yeah, I got that part.
So anyway, I put my foot down and said, "You have to leave. You know, I can only do so much." And he left. My drinking, that's the point when my drinking really started to pick up. So I was helping my dad look after my mom and supporting him emotionally. He was a mess. Of course, his wife is dying. And my drinking really started to pick up to where I started drinking in the morning to put me back to sleep. And I thought that's okay. I'm poor me. My mom is dying. Um, how can you not feel sorry for me? I have a reason to drink now. And, when I reflect on that, I had a real reason to drink then in my mind. Um, she lived about a year and a half. During the time of her sickness, anytime that I knew she was okay, if I knew she was okay and things were settled, um, I would drink. And it was mainly at home, but I kept a bottle under the bed where no one could find it. And I was in it all the time. A few months after she passed, I met another man. Like I said, relationships are a huge part of my story. I met another man, and this time, this was it. I had arrived. We had a lot in common. He was in education like me. We were friends. We had fun. My kids adored him. He taught one of my kids. Everything was perfect. And even better, he was a drinker. And
Oh boy.
yeah, so I met this man who he was a drinker, and I loved that. I loved that. And we had fun. The drinking became fun again. It didn't become a way to put me to sleep anymore. It woke me up. We danced, we partied, it was a wonderful time. In my mind then, it was a great time until it wasn't. Um, my drinking quickly became, we moved in together, of course, because this is my chance. I'm going to make a happy home. Life is going to be finally, life is going to be good. We moved in together and the drinking got out of hand. I couldn't make it. I couldn't get up in the morning and function anymore without a drink. On my work days, I did. I didn't drink on my work days, but it really physically started to hit me. I remember going for blood work at a doctor's checkup and them calling me and saying, "Your liver counts are pretty high." And, typical alcoholic, I lied. I said, "Oh, some girls came over last night. We had a little bit of wine. I know it got out of hand. We haven't seen." Total lie. Total lie. I would lie. I would lie every chance I got to cover up my drinking. Um, it got really, really ugly. And then people started really noticing. Um, I was a closet drinker. So I thought, well, if I hide it a little bit, the power that alcohol had over me at that time was incredible. I would do anything to get it. And when I knew I didn't have it, um, I would panic. I was in a panic. So, needless to say, that relationship ended. We maintained a friendship. We still have to this day. We maintained a friendship, which is probably all that relationship should have ever been. Um, and I'm still in the small town at that time. I've never left. I don't know anything else. So I think, well, maybe if I move, right? I was always looking for a different for different people, places, and things, because that would fix it. If I changed my environment, if I changed my people, if I changed the things, this would be different, and it never was. So I moved to a city, a small city, in with, guess what, another man. He worked all the time. All the time I was there in this big home by myself. That was wonderful for me because I could drink and no one could see me any work shift work, so I could be in bed asleep. By the time he came home, I learned how to hide the cans. I learned how to hide the bottles. I knew where to put it. It was a ritual. It was something I almost got a thrill out of. Drinking and driving wasn't my thing. I had done it. I've done it on a few occasions, but it wasn't really my thing. I was quite happy to stay alone. And at that point, I really noticed a shift in my drinking from drinking with people to just wanting to be alone. Because if people were saying something when they saw how much I drank, what would they say if they knew how much I drank? And it was so dark and secretive and ugly. And that's all that I did every chance I got. So Monday to Friday, I could go periods, like I could go during the day at work without drinking, um, but I would feel sick. I would shake. My stomach would hurt. I would vomit in the shower in the morning. Um, I would take every chance I could at work to get into the bathroom just to be alone, just to breathe, because I felt so physically sick. And I would swear every time, this has to stop, Pam. It's got to stop. You can't do this. You're getting sick. And I would mean it. I would mean that when I said it to myself. I would mean it when I said it to other people. But that mind disease halfway through my day, as soon as I started to feel better, just a little bit better, there was that mind disease for me saying, it's not that bad, Pam. It's not that bad. And you know what would make it feel really good was another drink. Um, he ended up having an affair. I had everything I owned in his home, everything. I left with 2 suitcases. That was all I had. This is a woman who I had rented my home out at the time, but I had tenants in it, so I couldn't go back there. So I moved in with a girlfriend. That was my slippery slope. She was a wonderful stand up person, and she was one of the few people that approached me kindly and gently about my drinking. And she would say, Pam, you're better than this. This isn't you. What are you doing? She was very gentle, very, very kind. And I really believe that she was put in my path for a reason. I lived with her for 2 years, and my drinking just really, really exploded then. Um, Still not drinking during the week, going to work, calling in sick a little more than normal. I didn't call in sick a lot, but a little more than normal because I physically couldn't some days get out of bed. My drinking at the end was at least 26 ounces of straight vodka, gin, whatever I could get 26 ounces of straight. And that was Monday to Friday, out of the bottle, no glass, by myself in bed. That was my go-to. So I'll fast forward to kind of it went on like that. I found a group of friends that lived close by. They were all drinkers. So I fit right in there. I was great. And in fact, I made a lot of them look really good because I could drink more than them. And I heard these funny things, Pam, if you just wouldn't drink so fast. And I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand people that would sit there with a drink and they had it for half an hour.
Yeah.
That would make me insane. It would just make my skin crawl and I would fixate on that. Aren't you going to drink that? I was always the last one up. I never wanted to go to bed because I knew if I went to bed, that feeling was going to end and I would have to wake up sober and I would have to wake up with those raw feelings that I could not deal with. It was hell. Being sober was torture for me. So I'll fast forward to where it gets good, because things did get good. I found myself one night in the night, sitting up in bed, and my sleep, I was on some heavy sleeping medications. I had been on them for 10 years. Um, I woke up one night in the night and I was in that alcoholic where we're not sure if we slept. Did we sleep? We might have slept an hour. It wasn't great. I'm not sure. Am I awake? I might have been blacked out. I don't know. And I woke up in the night and I had nothing. And I think this was my really low point. I had nothing to drink, nothing, nothing. Um, and a true alcoholic knows this feeling. That is terrifying to have nothing. So I found a bottle of body spray and I looked at it and I knew I knew because at one point in my life, I was a welfare officer and we would have people come in that smelled like perfume and they smelled like Lysol. And I remember them telling me in the office, that's because they drink it because there's alcohol in it. So
Really?
I tried to jimmy the lid off of it, but I couldn't. There, those perfume people don't want you refilling their bottles. So I took a steak knife and I cut through the plastic on the top of the bottle and I drank that entire bottle of body spray. Yeah. Um, I felt sick. I felt disgusting. I felt ashamed. I felt terrible. And I needed it so bad. And that really to me is it just emphasizes the wickedness of this disease, right? I'm a grown, intelligent woman, and here I am drinking an entire bottle of body spray. Right. That was my best thinking at the time because alcohol was my solution to everything, to every feeling. I drank when I was sad. I drank when I was anxious. I drank when I was happy. I drank when I was bored. I drank when I was excited. I drank all the time. Yeah. So that was I would say kind of my yuck moment, right? And I don't even think at the time I really even saw that. Like I woke up the next day, I felt terribly sick. I would not recommend drinking body spray. It's tastes gross. I had good breath for a while. That was about it. The taste never goes away. It stays for days. And right after that, I wasn't drinking much long after that. And what had happened was I'd gone to Ottawa to visit a school friend, a man, of course, and he said, come up and stay for a few days. We used to ride the school bus together in high school. It was great. And he was a drinker. So off I went. Um, and it was a Saturday night. And this was my turning point. It was a Saturday night. And the lady that I had lived with, I just call her an angel because she is. I'll never forget. It was 11:36 at night. And I had been drunk for 3 days straight. And I mean, didn't draw a sober breath. And it was 11:36 and something came over me. It was God. It really was the hand of God. I have no question because I couldn't rub two brain cells together at this point to make sense of anything. And I went outside and I called her and I said, there's something wrong. And at first she said to me, are you okay? Are you safe? I said, yeah, I'm safe. I said, I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm fine. I said, I'm really, really drunk right now. And I said, but there's something wrong with me. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, my body isn't processing this the same way that other people do. I said, it's just not. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. So I woke up the next morning extremely sick. I drove 6 hours straight home in the car. Probably shouldn't have driven. I would have blown over, I'm sure, because I had drank nonstop for 3 days. My first stop on the way back was one of my favorite secret liquor stores where no one knew me because I had to switch up my liquor stores all the time and lie at the liquor store. Oh, did I lie? I'd go in, get my 26. Okay. Yeah, so on my way back, I stopped at my secret liquor store because I had to change those liquor stores up all the time. I didn't want anyone knowing how much I drank. I got my token 26er of vodka. I went home. Went right to the bedroom, sat in bed, um, and I sat there that night. That was a Saturday night, and I drank the 26er. I got up the next day. I felt sick. I felt horrible. And I had a little bit of wine or something left. I can't remember, but I had something else. And 8 o'clock that night, I can't even explain this. I can't explain it. It was absolutely the hand of God because I could not have done this on my own. I picked up my phone and I didn't know anything about AA, nothing. Um, had no point of reference for this at all, but I knew there was something called that I had heard of. And I Googled it and I dialed the number. And a lady called me back and I walked downstairs. They took my number. I walked downstairs. I said to my girlfriend, I just called Alcoholics Anonymous. And she started, she said, you did not. I said, I did. And she was the look on her face was shock it was joy, it was relief, And a lady called me back within, I'd say, 10 minutes. It was quick. And I just bawled on the phone. I said, "There's something wrong. There's something wrong. Can someone help me?" And she said, "Yeah, we can." And that was the first moment that I had some hope, right? I had some hope. And she didn't judge me. She said, "Tomorrow, I want you to log on to the Zoom meeting. I'll be there with you." There were no in person meetings at that time. So that was all I had. So I did. Um, and I'll tell you how wonderful it is for somebody like me to be around people that when you told a little bit about your story, they didn't look at you in shock and horror. They didn't look at you like you were the devil's spawn, because here I am drinking body spray. I was welcomed with open arms. They called me by name. They saw me, right? They saw me and they saw the pain I was in. They saw me as a person, and they were just like me. Um, yeah, so I kept with the Zoom meetings until things opened up. I moved to a new city, which was exciting because I'm a small town girl, but I love a city. I moved to a new city.
So you're moving into a new city.
Yeah, and I started going to in-person meetings here. Um, and I just hung on to that hope. I had some hope. That was the first time I will say, in my whole life, that I had some hope that somebody understood this. Somebody understood how I felt. Um, and when I would listen to those people speak very early in my sobriety, I would listen to them and I could see the nodding, because we all know those underlying feelings of guilt, shame, remorse. It's just a common theme with us. Um, yeah, so I went wild with AA off the hop. I was so excited to maybe have a life, maybe have a life. These people had a life. Maybe I could have a life. Just maybe I could have a life. And as it turns out, yeah, I got one. I got one. Some really incredible things started happening to me. Got a lot better. Um, I got to have some ambitions. I got very active in AA. One of the key things for me at that time was I just dove in. I was up to my chin in AA, speakers, podcasts, anything I could get my hands on, anything to do with spirituality. I didn't even know what spirituality was. I had no idea. So I thought, being the alcoholic and extremist that I am, I thought, who knows about spirituality? Well, the monks seem to know. The Buddhist monks seem to. Actually, I came back from a Buddhist meditation session yesterday. It was great. So I started looking into that. I called a monastery. I said, "Can you talk to me about this? I don't know what this is." I had a huge prejudice against religion. My mom was Free Methodist, which is very staunch, very strict. That's how she was raised. I had a huge prejudice against religion. I didn't want to be that Bible thumping. I didn't want to be that. Um, yeah, so I started looking into other things to find a God of my own understanding, one that I wasn't fearful of, one that loved me, one that wasn't judging me, because I had always believed in God, but I didn't believe God was available to me. I believed God loved you and all the other people, but not me. I had done things that God could not forgive. Um, yeah, I believed God was available to everyone except me. So it was investigating other avenues. We don't realize, I didn't realize the prejudice I had against God, against, and today I will say I'm not a religious person. I'm a highly spiritual person. I just came from, a community church this morning where we had a great time. um, I'm not into, for me, I'm not into a denomination, but I'm a highly spiritual person. And I have a relationship today with a God of my understanding that is irreplaceable, and it keeps me sober, right? It just keeps me sober. Um, I have great relationships with my kids. I have a wonderful relationship with my dad. I have friends now. I don't even really think that I felt like I ever had any true friends looking back. Like true friends. I have so many today that, I can't, some days I can't keep up with the messages and the texts or the invitations, or I went from weekends just sitting by myself drinking, which is funny because if you rewind, that's how I started. I started in a closet, hiding it in the dark by myself, and that's how it ended. It ended me, one room in the dark by myself. So, yeah, that's kind of ironic how that works. Um, yeah, like my life has, I would, one other thing, that really for me is so important. When I was new, I would sit in the meetings and they would read the promises, and they sounded so appealing to me. And these are promises. And I would think in my head, oh my God, I hope you guys are right about this because I'm putting all my marbles here. I got nothing to lose. And when I started seeing them happen, where you intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle you, wow, fireworks, right? Fireworks. Fear of economic insecurity would leave us. Fireworks. Another huge, I mean, the biggest sponsor. And I was told, look for somebody that has what you want. They have a life that you want. They have that life that you want. Um, so I asked someone that had a life I wanted. She was a strong, capable, beautiful, God loving, faith filled woman. That in my drinking days, I would have hated her. I would have hated her guts because she had all the things, and I would have called her names and, been very nasty. But I did somewhere I got the guts to ask her. And I'll tell you, she passed such a message to me. She met with me some once a week at least. She would go to meetings with me, um, and she walked me through the book. And when she walked me through the book, it just, those pages just popped. And I could see that's me. That's me. That's me. Um, yeah, so she has been in, and we have a beautiful friendship. We have a beautiful friendship today. We go out and we socialize, we do things together. We can talk honestly. I can come to her with things that, I really can't go to a lot of people with. So that's beautiful. And I have the gift today of being able to sponsor other women and pass that message on and watch. Actually, this morning I was out with a lady that I'm sponsoring, and to watch someone else get that light in their eye and that hope for the day. And it's a Sunday, it's a Sunday morning, and we're awake and we're alive and we're thankful and we're doing things. I never thought that was possible for me. And to watch it in someone else, that's the real gift.
Yeah, it's amazing. You've got quite the story.
Thank you.
So one of the last questions I have is, I always ask everybody this. Do you have any advice for people watching and listening?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Absolutely. I can only speak to alcoholism. Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. And what I had to do for the first time in my life, I had to shut my mouth and I had to open my ears. I had to shut my mouth and listen, actually listen to people. And some of the things that they, were asking me to do, I was thinking, yeah, right. Okay. I'm not doing that. But I did it. I went to meetings. I got a solid sponsor. I, um, I reached out. Here's, I guess, my biggest piece of advice: ask for help. Ask for help. There are so many people willing to listen. And it might just be that one time where you just have that one thing, that just garbage trash piece that life throws at you. You lose a job, a relationship isn't working, something. Reach out to someone, because I kind of live by this code. God tells us this too shall pass. It doesn't say this too shall stay. So while it's passing, reach out to people, um, yeah, that are there to have your back. Yeah, that's my advice, I guess.
And great advice it is. So did you have anything else you wanted to throw in?
No, I think that's it. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, I know people sometimes are nervous at first, but it's not that bad. It's not,
No,
no pulling teeth. You were good.
no. And you know what? Kudos to you for doing this and for reaching so many people with good messages. Like, just kudos to you, Jim.
Thank you very much. That really means a lot. It really does.
You're welcome.
So for everybody watching and listening, I hope you like what you saw and heard. If you did, go below and give us a like. Also subscribe and you'll be able to see when we upload new videos. You can check out Addicts Anonymous at addicts-anonymous.com. We've got a ton of literature. We've got a ton of resources available. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and Facebook. So check us out there as well. So that's all we have for today. And until next time.